This is UMass Hockey.
And O'Hara does something marvelous yet again!
Home to future NHL stars. 5 NCAA tournaments in the last 6 seasons. 2 Frozen Fours. And a national title.
Another shot, they score!
It's NewMass at a whole new level. Now to get you pumped for all the Minutemen action on the ice, along with Nathan Strauss, here's the voice of the Minuteman, Jay Burnham.
And welcome into another episode of the NewMass Minute, coming at you from the Podcast Emporium here inside the Mullins Center. My name's Jay Burnham, voice of the Minutemen, alongside my broadcast partner who trekked all the way to Boston to take on Stonehill last weekend at Warrior Arena, Nathan Strauss. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, it's quite the trek. I've never done that drive before down the pike. It's definitely not 5 minutes from my house where I grew up. So it was, a real arduous journey. There's, it goes Lewis and Clark, Amerigo Vespucci, and then Nathan
Wait,
Strauss.
I say, is it technically in Boston?
It's in Brighton. It's
Brighton.
It's
Okay,
Boston.
yeah.
I think
Right.
Brighton is inside the Boston city limits. So it is Boston.
All right. Let's set it up because for those, first of all, UMass 3-0. All right, great start to the season. You've won the games that you're supposed to win. Stonehill, a recent D1 team making the jump a couple of years ago. But playing this game on the road where Stonehill now plays their home games at Warrior Arena, tell us, the background here, the setting, the capacity, the feel for this environment.
Okay, so again, what I say is not meant to disparage at all, right? Like every team has different
Disclaimer.
circumstances, right? Like Arizona State, Jill Jakuba was telling me about how Arizona State, when they played them in their first couple of seasons out in Tempe, they were in like a community ice rink. Warrior Arena is this beautiful state-of-the-art practice facility, but it holds, I would say, around 600 fans, all on one side of the ice. And it's very much not set up for broadcasting games or for really hosting serious games. It's, it was used for the NWHL back in the day, the PWHL on the women's side of things, but it's not what you expect from a D1 standpoint. So it was a different setup. It was unique. It was cool. UMass has practiced there before, playing some games at the Garden in Hockey East postseason play, but it's different, right? But I will say the crowd, 600 of them or so, was largely UMass fans. It's obviously one of those games in Boston where UMass fans kind of take over. Yeah. And aside from some of my personal gripes, involving Ethernet ports and kind of, it's not set up necessarily for broadcasts or media, et cetera. I had to help some student radio kids get on. It was great.
You're just helping everybody. First of all, we're going to hear from Steve Mastalerz, the Director of Player Development, goalie coach essentially for Massachusetts. A little bit later on the show, I'll ask him about his thoughts on Warrior. The broadcast, a little bit difficult to follow. We were watching it at Kent State at a restaurant, trying to bring you up as well on the audio. But the camera angle shoots out. Is that the road that you can see from the fan
that's
side?
The pike. That's the Mass Pike.
Yeah.
You're a mile from the left exit to Cambridge, so you're right in Brighton, kind of next to the WGBH, the public radio and public TV broadcasting building. So it's in a great spot.
Yeah.
Right near Soro Drive. You're like a stone's throw from Harvard as well.
And as soon as the game started, it was let's go UMass.
Yeah, exactly. And that's often the case. Like I've seen that happen for UMass at BC, BU, and Northeastern. I think especially BC and Northeastern tend to get really good UMass showings. Yeah. But for Stonehill, I mean, again, they're playing 40 miles from home. Like, their school is in Easton, right? They're close to the Rhode Island border. UMass fans were there in good numbers early on.
The big news, I guess the headline is Vaslav Nestrasil gets a hat trick in just his third collegiate game. Did you see that coming after the first two?
I mean, I saw it coming after the first one.
Really?
Well, he had 9 shots on goal or 8 shots on goal in that opener. And the only goal that he scored was the one where he said, my stick wasn't working, so I used my skates.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, he's been really impressive so far. And he scored 3 very different kinds of goals.
Take us through them.
So the first goal, which is my favorite of the 3, is UMass is on the power play in the first period, and he's on the goal line extended. So he's kind of setting up with his back to the wall. He picks up the puck. He gets the puck passed to him, and no one closes him down quickly. So he just jams it near side really quickly because the goalie is focused outwards, anticipating him, passing either to the bumper or to one of his to the blue line, and he just jams it in quickly. Goalie doesn't react fast enough. He scores like that. It was a moment that Greg Carvel called just like a really high IQ play.
Yeah.
And then the third goal, which we'll skip ahead a little bit. The third goal, he kind of taps it in after some scrambled play on another power play, I believe. The goalie makes a couple of really good saves, pucks on the goal line, and Nestor still jams it in. And then the second goal is another different kind of goal. More of a settled play, a beautiful 2-on-1, little 3-on-1. Yenchko and Jack Galanek, that line came together, breaking out. So 3 different kinds of goals, but he was a force to be reckoned with, and he's clearly right now, one of the players to watch in the entire freshman class. He's amongst the top 5 in expected goals for all players in the country right now. So he's shooting a lot, but it's working out for him so far.
Couple of assists for Jack Musa. Mikey D'Angelo gets his first goal as a member of the Minutemen. We kind of highlighted him after that first weekend. I know he didn't score, but he was all over the ice. It felt like he was in the mix for a lot of the plays. Did he stand out for you in the third game as a member of the Minutemen?
Well, yeah, he got the goal, right? And that's so important. Sometimes it takes getting that first one with a new team or the first run of the season to open the floodgates. But it was a really fine goal. It was, again, UMass picked up the puck while forechecking. He ended up with a really good finish. He goes bar down. And this is, again, a high caliber offensive player who's getting to showcase that now for the first time. I think playing with Jack Musa does good things for people. We saw what happened with Cole O'Hara and Lucas Mercury last year. Like, they found really good synergy. And then this line, again, contributed pretty well. So D'Angelo, great to get him with that goal. Hopefully, the first of many.
So, I think fans are looking at the schedule. You're like, okay, Northern Michigan, tough year last season. Certainly they're a better team this year. Stonehill, a team you probably should beat. But, they beat 2 Hockey East teams last year. These are games that you have to have, not only for yourself, but for the conference as well.
Yeah, and UMass is playing a team on Friday in Northeastern who didn't do that. They beat Holy Cross 6-4, but then they lost to Army 2-1. And Army's another team that UMass will have. Yeah, they lost 2-1. Army then went on to demolish Stonehill on Sunday. So again, not every game, there's no transitive property of sports, right? Just because you beat one team and that team's beating another team, it doesn't actually mean that you're better than that third team. But you have to win those games because there are teams that haven't taken care of business like that. And last week we got both sides of the equation. UNH goes on the road. They split with Michigan State. BC gets 4 points from 6 against Minnesota. But then you also have teams losing and dropping games that you really shouldn't be dropping, to other teams. BU with a tie against Colgate as well as part of a 2-game home set. So again, it's not apples to oranges, but you have to win these games. And UMass has. They're 3-0.
And now they're move up to number 11 in the country, also within the conference. I guess, let me rewind here. Providence had to host Michigan, so they lose, they go down. What other games were on your radar this past weekend?
Well, but briefly on Providence, Michigan. Providence is a team that is always kind of in those preseason discussions. They were in the top 10. And they got the doors blown off them by Michigan in the first game.
Are they like the Texas football where everyone just puts them in there?
Well, no, because they are really talented. And Nate Lehman is an outstanding coach, and he's been there for a long time. This was a wake-up call. And they've had these early season wake-up calls the last couple of years. They had it with Denver a few years ago as well, where they gave up a couple shorthanded goals in the second game. They need to figure out the discipline. They've got a senior goalie in Philip Svedback. They've got a top 10 pick in Roger McQueen. They'll figure it out. I think this was more of the case of, wow, Michigan is really good.
Yeah.
But you don't want to have that happen at home. That's the tricky thing is if you go on the road, which Providence did to Yost, I think either last year or the year before, and you lose, that happens. You got to protect home ice.
Yeah.
So that was one of them. And shout out to Boston College for playing really well against Minnesota. BC beat them clean on Thursday night, and then it was a tie on Friday, a shootout. weirdly enough, it was Minnesota's first shootout
like
win in
5
like
years or something.
10 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They hadn't converted a shootout attempt.
Yeah, like 0 for 42 or something.
Something
I
ridiculous
I saw
like
someone
that.
tweet out that stat. Yeah.
Yeah, so those were the games that I was really focused on. And also UNH on Thursday night, picking up I don't want to say uncharacteristic road win, but it was a big upset. They scored with 7 seconds left to beat Michigan State. Those were some big games for
Just
for
a couple
Hockey
of big
East.
wins for New Hampshire so far this season.
Yeah.
In the conference.
Yeah, I mean, UNH is one of those teams that how they do in their non-conference will absolutely dictate their postseason play, in whether they are on the bubble or not. Similar to UMass Lowell last year, where they probably aren't. They're not a BU, right? They have a different mindset, a different setup. But if they really impress in the early goings, they could make a run as well. Goaltending has been an issue for them, but they brought in Kyle Chavette from Union, very experienced guy, and he's looked good so far. They'll have their moments for sure. And they're a team that UMass always battles with, and we'll get that later on in the year.
Well, first now you move up to number 11 in the country, and you take on Northeastern. This will be the first of 4 matchups against Northeastern. If I get this right, this one counts for Hockey East play. There's one, I think, in December that is technically a non-conference game.
Yeah. You get Northeastern 4 times. Each of these teams is going to play AIC, and one of these games replaces that game on the calendar. Not this one, though. But yeah, I think it's the second of the 2 games at Matthews. It's like a Sunday afternoon game at 5. That's not a conference game. So
keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind.
This one matters more?
This one, yeah, it just means more. Look, I've always said that Hockey East is
means more.
Sorry, the SEC is the Hockey East of the football world. But yeah, this is the first Hockey East game for UMass. The first Hockey East game they'll have until early November, until Maine comes to town on November 6th. So right now, there are 2 teams tied atop Hockey East. It's Merrimack and Lowell. They've played each other twice, and each team won 1. So, a big chance to get off to a hot start for UMass in Hockey East play. But it is a familiar opponent. You know how they're going to play. UMass has really had the edge against Northeastern in recent years, especially in the Greg Carvel era. And Jerry Keefe plays a certain way. They play difficult though. They're a hard team to play against, and based on their first 2 games this year, not a lot to go off of, but you don't know which of those 2 is sort of the true Northeastern identity.
Yeah. And I think Northeastern, they've been down a little bit last several seasons, but they made a run last year in the Hockey East tournament, and I think they won 3 games in the tournament. They have the guys to be able to, really make a challenge on any team in Hockey East. And I think that's obviously the beauty of the conference, right, is that any night it can happen for any team.
Yeah, and I think, goaltending is the real, dictator of their success. You go back to 2018-19, they had a Richter goalie in Caden Primo. Then they went to Devin Levi, who had, was the best goalie in the country for 3 full seasons, really. UMass did account for his 2 worst games at the collegiate level, for whatever it's worth. But they've had a tradition of outstanding goalies. They go from that to Cam Whitehead, who had ups and downs before signing with Vegas. They bring in Lawton Zacher from Brown, and he's had really good numbers with Brown, but he's only playing his 3rd game with Northeastern. They do return Vinny Borghese, who's one of the best defensemen in the conference as well. And then guys like Joe Connor, Justin Ritskovian, they have a different type of they have familiar names for sure. And they brought in a couple of guys from the QMJHL as well. So it should be a good contest, and I'm excited to see what UMass does. And kind of a weird weekend, right? You got 2 different teams, but both at home. Will
this be the first? I think I saw one guy at least from the QMJHL. Would this be one of the first guy we see from the Canadian leagues? Or
yeah, I think there was one. Matthew Ward from Northern Michigan was from the WHL. He played for Medicine Hat.
Okay,
this is the first guy from the Q. Stonehill didn't have any. So this will be the first CHL.
He played. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was there 5 years, I think.
Yeah. Which is not
the unnamed player on Northeastern.
Unnamed player. Matthew, number 81. Yeah, I believe. So yeah, I think this will be the first time that UMass sees a lot of players from there. The Omaha series, though, which obviously we'll talk about next week before we hit the road to beautiful Nebraska, their team is like 50% Canadians, CHL players. So that'll be a difference.
And what has their start to the year been like?
Omaha?
Yeah.
let's see, they beat St. Thomas, and then something else happened. I'll double check. See, you found a weakness, but I'll tell you right now. I know that Simon Latkozy, their goalie, had a really good game.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No. I mean, there's only so they lost to Minnesota. They split with Minnesota State, so they lost 4-1 on Saturday, and they beat them 6-2.
Oh wow!
On Friday, but Latkozy made 47 of 49 saves. So split against a good CCHA team.
All right. So, and that's going to be a tough, really, I mean, I guess you count Stonehill as a road game, but you said
it'll be the
home
first road game
like,
in a sort of a collegiate environment.
Yeah.
So it should be a lot of fun, but that's, to look forward
but
to
that's
next
after
week.
you have to play, by the way, you didn't even get to Bentley on Saturday, the big game, the big weekend here at UMass Family Weekend. You've got hockey, thankfully, this time around, Friday, Saturday, not Saturday, Sunday. That all threw us through a loop last weekend. Then you've got Bentley, who went to the NCAA tournament last year. I think they won the conference for the first time. I mean, this is two very good games that you get at the Mullins Center this weekend.
Yeah, and Bentley's a really well-coached team. James Dewar's dad ran up to me in the concourse last weekend and was talking to me about what Bentley does. James' older brother, Sam, played there for 3 years after a couple years.
So he gave
Maine.
me the inside report.
Scoop.
Thanks.
And
Thanks, Dad.
And he said, look, this is a really well-coached team. They do a lot of little things right. They lost a ton. They lost their goalie to Arizona State. They lost a number of fifth-year players, including Sam Dewar, to graduation. He's now playing in France. They lost some guys. And a tough start to the year. They go on the road to Colorado, and they play the two Colorado teams, or the two biggest Colorado teams. They lose to Colorado College. They lose to Denver. They kept it close until the third period in both of them. But they'll be coming off of an 8-day rest.
They're ready.
And they're looking to win.
Yeah.
Similarly, Northeastern coming off of a 6-day rest. They're ready. This is the first team.
Is it harder? Like, I guess, last weekend or 2 weekends ago, you had the ability to play the same team back to back, right, at home. Is it more difficult to prepare? I guess normally you would have to play two different teams, but you think that format is easier against Northern Michigan, where you got to play the same team twice? I
think it's you typically play the same team twice. I think this is the only time this year that UMass will play a different team on back-to-back nights. The only time it happened last year was in those multi-team tournaments where you're guaranteed that. It's pretty rare to have two games on back-to-back nights. Like last year, there was an exhibition on a Sunday that was against RPI after UMass played a game on Friday against Bentley.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that often. But honestly, it's a good test, right? Because if you're in the postseason, you're going to be playing different teams on short rest. And honestly, I think you're still at the point in the season where teams are focusing on their self and what they do rather than looking hard at the scout. The other guys, but it's not at the point where you know yourself well enough necessarily to be able to adjust per opponent. There'll be little tweaks, but I think it's just about consistency. And we saw, a different performance in night 2 versus night 1 in the opening weekend. I think they're going to try and, iron that out.
What were the tweaks that UMass made from weekend 1 to weekend 2?
It's hard to tell because UMass was playing on the smaller sheet of ice against Stonehill. So I think there was a lot of adjusting to that size, especially for younger players, playing on a different sheet for the first time at the college level. And Stonehill, to their credit, played really well. They outshot UMass pretty heavily. And Michael Frabel was really, really good. Greg Carville in the postgame interview mentioned, we got to give credit to Michael Frabel. He got one of the game pucks. And again, UMass gave up 40 shots on goal. He kept UMass in it at times in the first half of the game, and he was really, really good. So again, I'm not sure if there were tweaks that I saw from 1 to 2. They brought in
line
Elias
shuffling.
Zimmerman. Yeah.
Was there any, so Zimmerman didn't play. The freshman didn't play first weekend.
Yeah, he came in on the fourth line, and then Van Tassel went up to the first line. Yenchko went down to a different line to the Galanic
and Nestrasil. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're still trying to figure out what works, and also sometimes it takes that play in game to figure out what works. Practice is one thing, game is another one, and it's also about getting players' feet wet. Feet. getting their feetsies wet. But Zimmerman came in, and I wouldn't be surprising if in the second night of this weekend you saw a change as well, especially because it is early in the season and you want to make sure that everyone is fresh and healthy. And there's really good competition for the bottom 6 right now. Greg Carville said that, there are a lot of players in the mix for that spot.
I mean, this might be, I think he might have alluded to this earlier, that the depth that they have with the mixing and matching at the bottom six and guys that are trying to get into that, like into one of those lines. I mean, this might be as deep as you've been in a while.
Yeah, I mean, it might be the deepest team that Greg Carvel's ever had, which is really saying something considering that UMass won a national championship.
Think about the depth last year.
Yeah.
And you had, up and down, you had, 6 guys go sign NHL deals?
You had 6 players with 30 or more points, I think, come the end of the season, which is an astronomical total. But I will say, Jack Musa's on pace for that right now. Nestor Sil's on pace for that right now. I mean, you've got some guys who are putting up those big numbers, and I'm very excited to see them this weekend. Who are you most excited to see, though, this weekend back at home?
Like on the ice, you mean?
On the ice.
I mean, we talked a lot about Landon Nyes. We haven't even mentioned Nyes on this podcast yet. So excited to see him get back on home ice and see what he can do against Northeastern. I really enjoy watching Michael Robel in goal and thinking about that save he had against Northern Michigan. Is there more of that in the tank? And we'll talk with Coach Mastalerz here in a moment about how he coaches goalies. But I think his ability is, and the way that he's been able to grow since he's been at UMass has just been incredible. So he's one of the guys.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's hard to appreciate a good goalie because sometimes to make those fantastic saves, you have to give up really good, high quality shots against. But having him there is so comforting.
Yeah.
You watch a lot of NHL. We've been watching a lot the last couple of weeks since the season started a week ago. Like when you watch teams with an elite goalie play, you're even watching the Calgary Flames. You're watching Dustin Wolf, who's getting there, right? He's one of those guys who's grown.
Yeah.
The team plays more confident with the puck because they know they have him there. And he has grown a lot. He was really good his freshman year as the second team in Hockey East that year. He's been a Hockey East, all-conference selection the last 2 years, and he's pushing for that again this year without a doubt. I mean, again, he made 40 saves. Greg Carvel wants him to have that 940 save percentage, and that's a high number, but he could get there without a doubt.
It's going to be fun. Northeastern on Friday, Bentley on Saturday, football in the afternoon too as well. So we'll be here all day.
And soccer at noon.
That's
against
right.
Oral Roberts.
So we got another triple header.
Another triple header, Jay. I've stocked up on Red Bull, and this time I actually do have my car, so it'll be a lot easier.
We need to plan better this time around for what we're going to eat in between game 1, game 2, and game 3. All right. So
we really do.
All right.
I can pick something up for you, Jay. We've got long days. We're burning the candle at both ends, but then we're also adding in a third candle and burning it at a third end. So.
And bring in the electricity this weekend too at 100%. The Mullins Center. Can't wait, man.
Jay, you an electrolyte guy? You ever drink any of the Pedialyte or anything like that? I got a bunch.
Yeah. On certain days where I'm hurt, yes. Playing hurt, you know what I mean? After long nights,
After long nights. Well, Friday night, we'll see how we hold up.
We'll Pedialyte up.
Pedialyte up. It's going to be great. Get out there. It'll be a lot of fun.
All right, he's Nathan Strauss. We're going to show you some graphics here and then come back with our conversation with Coach Steve Mastalerz. That's coming up on the NewMass Minute. Stick with us. Welcome back to the NewMass Minute. As promised, we've got Director of Player Development Steve Mastalerz joining us inside the Podcast Emporium. Coach, thanks for stopping by, man. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. Great. Everything's good. We're off to a good start, so we're all happy around here.
I've been trying to sit down and talk with you for years, so I'm happy that now we finally be able to make this happen.
Yeah. Oh, great.
You, 3-0 start. Before we get to that, I'm just curious, as we look at your title here, Director of Player Development, what does that entail for you upon your return here to UMass?
Goalie coach.
That's
simply put it. Goalie coach, make sure the goalies are in line, make sure we have goalies in the pipeline coming in over the coming years, and don't let in goals. That's our biggest goal here. So
development, no goals.
Yeah, exactly.
You were a goalie here.
Yeah.
2011 to 2015. Yep. This is the pre-Carve era, which some people, the newer fans, probably can't fathom. Yeah. What do you recall about your time here and what you learned from UMass?
It was different for sure. The school's grown a lot. The program is night and day. What Coach Carvel's done is from where it was is crazy. So my first year I was with Tu Cahoon, who's a Massachusetts hockey legend, UMass legendary coach, great human being. So the first year was great. We were off to a good start. We were building something, and he ended up retiring, which we got a new coach, and things kind of fell off a little bit, to say lightly. So I kind of saw rock bottom of it. We struggled every year. We were last place in the league almost every single year. But we had a lot of good players. Connor Sheary plays in the NHL, Frank Vetrano, Brandon Montour, Joel Hanley, Connor Allen, many others too. So we had good teams. We just we never really had a culture, which Coach Carvel is huge on here, and that's why we're up there every single year. Long story short, it's cool to be back and see where it is now.
It's wild because you mentioned those names, and I think people look at some of the other teams in the league now and they say, well, they've got so many draft picks or they got so many high-end selections. Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily translate to success on the ice, does it?
No, it doesn't. Having a culture is huge, right? Having a coach now who was in the NHL for 12 years, right? Yeah. That's huge. He has good experiences. He demands a lot from these players, and you see it on the ice with how we play. So,
all right. So you guys off to a 3-0 start.
Yep.
Talked with Nate a little bit about this weekend at Warrior Arena, which is where the Bruins practice against Stonehill. What was that experience like? Just kind of walking into it's a new program. I think they're working on a rink for their own, but. Just kind of a different experience for your team this past weekend?
Yeah, it's a little different. Luckily, a lot of guys on the team, we practiced here before the Garden a couple of years ago, so we kind of knew the rink. But end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter, right? We got to keep, growing our game, growing what we want to do this year. So in a way, it was good, right? We didn't play our best. We didn't have a great start. We picked it up as the game went on, so it was good to see the guys evolve in that aspect of it. But, end of the day, yeah, it's a different experience. It's not necessarily a college rink, but, we still have to play our game.
I hear so much about the Olympic sheet versus the smaller sheets, the NHL sheet at Stonehill there, the difference in speed, right? But I don't necessarily hear it from a goalie perspective. So from that, between the pipes, does the sheet size matter, and how does the goalie, I guess, play differently?
Yeah, it does. Things happen quicker, right? Shots are on net a little bit faster. I think it helps Michael. He's good, especially when he doesn't have to think, right? So if things happen quicker, for a goalie, that's almost better in a sense, right? You got to play fast, but if you don't have to think as much, and your reads are going to be a little bit quicker, there's more flow to the game as a goalie. So from a goalie standpoint, it's almost better in a sense.
Yeah, and he's I guess I don't know if you call it like the new era, but these goalies are all now 6'5", 6'6", right? How does that differ from when you were coming up as a kid? I mean, just the size of some of these guys, including Robble in net.
Yeah, definitely. It's when I was coming up, like 6 foot was kind of the threshold. Like if you're over 6 foot, you can go play college, right? that was kind of how coaches looked at goalies. I'd say it's kind of grown a little bit, but at the same time, like in the NHL, you're starting to see a comeback of smaller goalies. Saros is under 6 foot.
Dustin Wolf,
Casey DeSmith. So there's a number of goalies who are smaller. So end of the day, you got to be good at stopping the puck, and you have to be very consistent with that.
What are you, I guess, by the time a kid gets to this level, you would hope they have a very solid fundamental understanding of how to play the position. When you're teaching younger kids, what are some of the building blocks, fundamentals that you try to drill into them at an early age?
Yeah, positioning, play reading, and compete. Those are the 3 areas, even at this age, right? I just really harp on a lot. If you can put yourself in a good spot to make a save, you're going to make a lot of saves. if you can read plays, you're going to put yourself into good spots. And if you want to make saves, you have to compete hard, right?
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, like the positions of these skilled players are so good, right? They're flying around out there. I'd say penalties are a little different than it was, 15 years ago. So the game's faster. So you have to be able to keep up with the play, which is huge.
When I watch some of these like highlights, I just saw one from Celebrini where like he sets up the goalie and it looks like he's going to shoot one way, but then kind of like changes his trajectory. I mean, how do you even begin to cover that when the opposition, they're not just shooting the puck, they're setting you up to get in a position to then open something up on net?
Yeah,
do you guys watch that tape? Do you see like how guys do that?
Yeah, you definitely do. Smart shooters mix up how they shoot the puck, right?
Yeah.
They shoot it the same way. Goalies will pick up on that. But it's the same thing as goalies. You got to practice different ways of reading how that puck's coming off the stick. So it's a simple in practice, mixing up releases, slap shots, wrist shots, dragging the puck, kind of, get into goalie talk, all different ways of how that puck comes off the stick. You got to practice that over and over, right?
Yeah.
And it takes years to get used to that.
What is Michael Robel like off the ice?
Good. He's a good kid. He's mature for his age. He's a pro. I don't think I would say that his first year here. He's grown a lot over these 2.5 years he's been here. So he has the natural ability. He's big, like we said. He's 6'7". He can skate for a bigger guy, which is different. You don't necessarily see that a lot. He competes harder, I should say. That's something he's had to improve. But probably the best thing is his mindset. Nothing really phases him. Whether he has the best game or the worst game, he comes out the same way. So, over the years he's developed, which is great to see. And this year he's got to keep, taking that step and, really be dominant this year in college hockey.
That first series against Northern Michigan was wild. We saw the Northern Michigan goalie sprawling all over the place. You guys, I can't even remember, was it 70 shots on net at this point?
Crazy, yeah.
Just take a step back when you see a performance like that. What are you thinking as you watch that game unfold?
Yeah, it's being a former goalie, I know being at the other end of that kid is sometimes tougher because it's a slower game. You got to stay engaged mentally. And especially when you're watching the other goalie stand on his head, that kid probably deserved the win. I give Michael credit though; like he didn't have a great first period. A goalie you definitely would want back, but he stuck with it and got better as the game went. And at the end of the day, you got to win the game, right? Whether it's a shutout and you play the best ever, or hey, you found a way to win 4-3, right? You got to find a way to win games, and winning ugly is a skill as well. So. Yeah,
I caught you scouting the second game that night, the opening weekend, right? You're always coming out there to watch the warm-ups. And we were speculating on the broadcast. I mentioned this last week on the show. William Grama was the goalie's name for Northern Michigan, and we were speculating there's no way he comes out for night 2. Yeah. But they brought him back out after maybe exerting himself quite a bit. Were you a little shocked when you saw kind of the duress he was under in game 1 to come back out for game 2?
Yeah, a little bit. Early in the year too, you might think that, but it shows the character of that kid.
Yeah,
right. He transferred where he wasn't playing a lot at Wisconsin, so I mean the kid wants to play. Right. He left his school for a reason, which is a high program. Went to Northern Michigan where he wanted to play. So I give the kid credit. I wouldn't be surprised if he told his coach, "Hey, I want to play."
Yeah.
So.
And it meant you kind of brought up too that you played in that epic 5 overtime Hockey East game against Notre Dame. That was your last series as a collegiate player, right?
Yep.
2015?
Yep. Yeah, my senior spring, we were out in Notre Dame, best of 3 series. And game 1, played 5 overtimes. We won 4-3, I think it was. Shane Walsh, another Massachusetts kid, he put the game winner, I think, halfway-ish through the 5th overtime. So, yeah, it was
How did you feel physically after that game?
I think, honestly, a lot of us, stopped sweating at a point. I don't know if we had anything in us. Jeff Smith, who was our athletic trainer at the time, he was doing a great job hydrating us, getting us some bananas and, peanut butter, some carbs into us as well. But there's definitely a point you're kind of on autopilot.
Yeah.
You kept going in the locker room. It's like, when's this thing going to end? But
did you have any thinking about, okay, once you get past that first overtime, I think like a no-hitter always has like an amazing defensive player, right? Were there any moments that you thought defensively kind of stood out in those overtime sessions?
Yeah, I think just as a group, we, both ways, there was a bunch of weird plays. I think I let up 3 goals in like the first half of the game. So I didn't have a great start to the game. And then, we shut it down the rest of the way. I remember I think it was Lucia on Notre Dame, a really good player forward for them. He had an wide open net on the back door, and he broke his stick. So I was just like, holy cow, like I got lucky on that one. But, it was even. It was back and forth. I think we outshot them a fair amount. I think we had 91 shots. 91
shots, yeah. That's still an NCAA record.
Yep. Cal Peterson was unbelievable that game. So, I was lucky to squeak out the win at the end there.
So you got that back then. It was a best of 3.
Yep.
And you played all of them at Notre Dame.
Yep, all of them at Notre Dame. So we won the first one, 5 overtimes. The next night I went in. I think after getting home at 2, both teams did. So there's no excuse. I think I got pulled on like 4 or 5 shots the next night. And then I played the third game as well because it was 1-1 after the first 2 games, and I got hurt my last game.
Oh no!
High ankle sprain, and that was it. So I think we ended up losing like 8-1, something like that.
So then you're sitting there, you get hurt in your last game.
Yeah.
Your college year are over.
Yeah.
And you're saying, I know you ended up going to play pro, but was that always the goal for you? Like when college was over to go?
Yeah. I definitely
professionally
wanted to play at some level. Right after I got some calls in the East Coast League, and I was hurt, so I had a rehab. I had ankle sprain, so I think it was like, 4 or 5 weeks. So later that spring, when playoffs were starting for pro, Joey Gasparini, who was our assistant coach, his brother worked for LA, and they asked Joey if we had a goalie who would go to the AHL in Manchester, and I was still rehabbing. I'm like, I'm going, absolutely. So I went there and was able to be a part of a Calder Cup winning team. Didn't play, but ended up being a backup. Dressing for the finals, which was awesome, and got an AHL ring out of it. So
where's the ring now?
I got to find it.
Yeah,
it's at home somewhere.
And that's a Manchester organization that no longer is in existence. Right?
Yeah. It was the last year. That was the last year of the AHL. They switched over to the East Coast League after that for the Kings. I ended up coaching there for 2 years as their goalie coach, and then the team folded, and kind of basically all the NHL teams are moving closer to their NHL clubs. So they moved out to LA. Or
the LA New Hampshire connection just didn't make
I don't think
geographical sense, did it?
Yeah, call-ups for taking a 7-hour flight or whatever it is.
So how do you get reconnected? Because you didn't play under Coach Carvel, but he must have known of you, and how did you get connected with him to come back here for this position? Yeah,
when Coach Carvel got the job, I remember talking to him. There's a alumni media in Boston, and ever since then we talked periodically. I go to a game on the road in Merrimack because I live right by there. And then I have a goalie school as well. So my partner, Mike Buckley, UMass alum, he coached here at UMass. He's been in the NHL for a long time now as a goalie coach. We just kind of started that connection again once the old assistant coaches left, and there was kind of that hole needed. So then when the rule change happened, kind of it was perfect timing. I was able to jump into this role.
Which is what, allowing more
3 coaches, assistant coaches now. So been blessed to be back and be a part of the other side of it now, right?
How many coaches would be the right amount of coaches for the NCAA?
I feel like we're at the right amount.
That's the number?
Yep. I think it should be a standard, throughout the whole, every team should have to have that many. There's a couple teams who don't have 3 full-time. I think it should be a standard for everybody. It helps everyone. It helps with recruiting, with the assistant coaches. Head coach can focus a lot more on the team and that. So it's a good balance, I feel.
Are you watching, obviously, development of your own goaltenders, but are you scouting the opposition too and maybe trying to find weaknesses in their game?
Yeah. Every week I give the team a scouting report of who we're going to be playing. Just tendencies. I'm not saying, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. Just some things to look for. Just be be familiar with who we're going to play and their career so far, and so they have an idea going into it what that goalie is like.
How does a goal? Because I watched a few games this past weekend with the NHL starting up, and just watching these guys. I mean, first of all, it's just amazing their talent, ability, but seeing guys try to fight through traffic in front of the net. How do you coach? I mean, being active and trying to see around big bodies in front of you.
That's compete. Number one rule I have with our goalies is it's not an excuse. Right? If I ever hear all a screen, like I'd say some different verbiage, but no, you got to work harder to find the puck. That's the name of the game now, right? If you watch, I bet probably 60% of goals have some sort of traffic.
Yeah.
Whether a player's using your own defenseman on a rush, trying to shoot through the legs, or it's just in zone, someone's at the net front. So it's not something you complain about or anything like that. You just have to,
is it just
work through it.
You have to just be
Yep.
Constantly searching for the puck and trying to be active and looking around what's in front of you? Yeah,
that's a big part of it. You got to be smart, right? You have to anticipate, right? You got to feel what side the screen's coming from. You have to start leaning as that player's coming. If you just sit there and wait for a screen and then try and find it, it's going to be too late. So we always work on it in practice. A lot of drills, in practice have screens. So it's a constant thought, but we're trying to make it second nature where you don't even think about it. It's all right, I got to find the puck.
What's more important to a goalie? His glove or his blocker stick?
Even. Yeah, you got to be consistent. Well-rounded. There's definitely goalies who are better at one or the other. Michael's glove has been weaker over the years. It's gotten a lot better, where I'd say he's even now. But you just got to round them all into shape, so there's a good balance to it.
What's your impressions of this team first 3 games in? Good. You've got some higher competition on the horizon this weekend.
Yeah, it's been good. We got a lot of new guys this year, right? We got, I think, 11 new faces. With that, there's going to be adjustment period. So these first 3 games have been good for that. But we got to build every week, right? We're definitely going into league play starting this weekend, which our league is anyone can win every single night. So we got to make sure that we're playing our brand of hockey and really buying into that.
I give you one goalie to play one do-or-die, winner-take-all game. Who you taking?
Can I take Jonathan Quick back in
you can.
2011, right? When he was
Quick in his prime? Sure, man,
Yeah, definitely Quickie. I got to meet him when I...
Because you didn't overlap at all. He was a couple years.
I think he was
4 or 5 years
before you, right? Before me.
Yeah.
There's a goalie, Paul Dayton, between us. But when I signed with LA and the AHL there, I got to meet him. He was around. His brother-in-law was on our team. So, it was good to meet him. But, growing up, he went to prep school. I went to prep school. So I always kind of tracked him. He was a goalie I'd watch. So
he was one of the guys that you kind of did you emulate or just try to?
I didn't try and play like him. I was not that flexible and, athletic. But definitely a guy you watch and, kind of keep track of. So,
All right, I love it. You kept the answer in the UMass family.
Got it, yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Well, hey, Steve, thanks so much for stopping by, man. And I appreciate, obviously, a great start to the season. And keep up the good work, man.
Appreciate it.
All right. That's Steve Mastalerz. This has been the NewMass Minute. We'll see you this weekend for Family Weekend inside the Mullins Center. Take care.